Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know we communicate a lot through social media, but some of these traditional ways of marketing and getting, your message out, like picking up the phone, if that sounds interesting to you, because there's still money to be made in that industry, a lot of it. We're going to talk about that on this episode. Let's get this thing going. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone, because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Do you struggle with managing your call center and telemarketing operations? Are you looking for ways to improve your customer service and expand your business appeal? Our guest today is here to help. He's a leader in the call service industry with over a decade of experience training and managing top performing telemarketers in Central America. With a background in communication and Spanish, he knows how to effectively motivate and inspire his teams to achieve success. So let's welcome to the show the CEO of Costa Rica's call center, Mr. Richard Blank. Welcome to the show.
Hernan, so happy to be here today. You and your amazing audience, I got a lot of stuff to share with the Business Bros podcast.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, well, let's start with Costa Rica call center. How did you get into this industry? Why, of all things, the call center?
My good friend, no one ever really grows up saying they want to be CEO of a call center, let alone a telemarketer.
No.
When I graduated the proud Abington High School back in '91, my favorite class was in Spanish. I didn't fall for the traps of opinions and pressures to go into certain careers. I wanted to be a linguist. So at the University of Arizona, I made it as a major. Post-grad at 27 years old, I had the chance to move to Costa Rica. A 1 in a million opportunity and work at my friend's call center. And I stayed there and I learned the business from the inside out. And then in my mid-30s, I threw my hat in the ring and started my own call center. And here we are 15 years later. So it's been a good story of twists and turns, but guess what? We won in the end. So it's got a happy ending.
So let me ask you, going from, well, first of all, being in Costa Rica and then working for a call center and then deciding to like start your own, what was that? What prompted you to do that? There's a lot of people who are thinking about taking that risk, taking that leap of faith, but don't ever really do it. You did, and you've been successful at it. Why take the leap?
Well, I realized I was a guest in another country and I'm a specialist. Some people might even say a prima donna. I have a luxury trade. I work with people with rhetoric and phone skills. So I needed individuals with local Costa Rican experience with the labor law. So I hired attorneys. What about accountants, CTOs to run my server rooms, and human resources directors, people that invested their time and career to build those skill sets. So think of myself as a trunk of a tree. I needed branches and roots in order to expand. And as long as your ego is in check and you can delegate and find the right people that will walk with you, not just bounce in and out of a company, there's a very good chance you'll get some fidelity and people will see the vision that you see. And if you give them their dignity, if you break bread with people, and in my case, and I play pinball and Pac-Man with my agents, then maybe they'll stay. They might recommend you, and they might even feel fulfilled in a job where people see it as a transitional type of job or something in Hollywood glamorizes or you may look down upon. But in addition to that, most of my agents here are college educated. They're bilingual, and I have a dedicated call center here, so we don't do mix. We don't work on multiple campaigns. They come into the center with experience, but sometimes I have to get rid of bad habits. And other times what I'll do is I'll mold an agent that has these bilingual skills, which shows structure and discipline and cognitive skills, but I will teach them to use a CRM or a headset. That's not difficult. It's really about being in the now and showing active listening, being engaged in a conversation and not just calling someone sir, ma'am, saying actually Hernan see us, which is a great name, and saying it as your best friend. So we might anchor on a phone call and connect and build that sort of rapport. So those are the sort of soft skills, my friend, that I try to instill in the call center culture that I've created here.
Well, let me ask you about the whole idea of a call center. I feel like there are a lot of companies out there that are using call centers very spammy ways that haven't that aren't as successful as some call centers that do it correctly, utilizing their database and nurturing communication between their clients to enhance the relationship. What are some of your top strategies for kind of taking this whole concept of calling on the phone and actually having people have a conversation, and implementing it for businesses that might have this other stigma of that was yesterday's mode of communication, not today's mode of communication?
I still find telemarketing is a means to an end, and I think you should gauge the calls you make in regards to ethics. You feel comfortable making the call, or you being shady, or as you say, just spammy. And so since I'm a guest in a Catholic country, the agents have leverage. And I need to make sure that they can go home there, tell their parents what they do for a living. But let's be realistic here. You're looking to buy time. You're not going to get the 10 minutes that Hollywood shows you. There's a lot of gatekeepers out there. So my suggestions for people that are doing, let's just say, business to business type of phone calls, your first impression should be a company name spike. As much as I want to know how well Hernan CS is doing today, if you answer the call, I'm going to say, hey, Business Bros Podcast, how you doing today? I'm going to say better than you do, okay? And so what it's going to do is use my anonymity as good faith. It's almost like a mystery shopper. I've been there before. So these gatekeepers reduce it a little bit. They start asking me my name, and politely I will introduce myself, but I'll take it a step further, Hernan. Prior to being transferred to you at your Business Brothers podcast empire, I will let your gatekeeper know they've done a phenomenal job, and I'm going to give them a positive verbal reinforcement because it's giving a gift. They gave me the pass to pitch to speak with you, and prior to me introducing myself to the business owner yourself, I'm going to let you know how amazing your assistant is. So that reduces your defense, puts me forward in regards to knowing you, and then we can have a normal conversation. I like using military alphabet because, yes, your last name is exotic, but then again, it's showing respect on how to spell it properly so emails do not bounce back. Also, a lot of people served in the military, so it's another area to anchor. And I believe that people need checkpoints. They need confirmation and tie-down questions. Hernan, things need to make sense or needs to sound good, because if you don't have these confirmations, you might be leaving a door open. And finally, there are distractions, bad cell phone connections, noise in the background, dogs barking. Those are the times and those are the swords you should fall upon. Don't blame somebody else for their dog barking. You can let them know you love the dog, what's its name, what its breed, and how old is the puppy. So you can bond that way. They put it outside and you just really kind of sidestep a potential rabbit hole. So as long as you can buy 30 seconds to a minute of time, be in the now, use people's names, good transitional sentences, you're not compromising ethics, values, or morals, and we're not lying. Hernan, all I'm doing is having a conversation with the well-mannered ways in which I was raised by my parents and grandparents. Take it as you want it.
Yeah, no, and it works really, really well. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm using a lot of those strategies myself in this podcast. I mean, the whole thing is designed to help emphasize and bring energy and bring to life the guest's business and their personality. And
Sure.
that's the whole point of having the fire intro at the beginning and the way we design the thumbnails. I'm doing the same thing in a digital aspect that you're doing on the telephone. My question that I want to ask next has to do with your training and managing of your telemarketing teams. It's one thing for you and I who are well practiced to do this. How do you get somebody who maybe has never been in this industry before? Maybe you didn't have the same upbringing or parents that you and I had to teach them some of these strategies to be successful at telemarketing.
My good friend, it really just works in any sort of vertical. Ask the painter why their painting looks very realistic, or someone that can play the violin or piano, any sort of athlete with muscles and strength. You see the dedicated practice, 10,000 hours to be a master. So you've really answered your own question. Look at you and your podcast. This did not happen overnight. Sure, we had advantages, or we had friends or influences growing up, but no, Hernan, you're the one that was there when the cameras are off. You did the writing, you did the producing, you still had that momentum and wind in your sails. You put in more than just the 1 hour in class and 1 hour of homework a night. Those real students read the additional books or went out with people to the museums on the weekend when they should be at a party. These are the people that were growing their own personal interests. So I'm not going to hit the ball and drag Johnny, but if somebody wants to get into this industry, they should be recording themselves. They should be analyzing their tone, their rate, their pitch, and their duration. They might want to expand on their vocabulary and use a thesaurus. Greatest examples never use the word help. You should say, how may I guide, assist, or potentially lend a hand? There's ways to power up words. You can make them more diplomatic and strategic. Focus more, as I mentioned earlier, transitional sentences, so you just don't jagged edge the end of a conversation and move to something else. There should be ways to putting it to bed, so someone squeezes out all the drops of the conversation. And these are just tell signs of social grace and courtesy. And it's not difficult. You wipe your feet before you go in someone's home. You ask permission before taking a beverage. Why can't we extend these same sort of soft skills over the phone? And you're saying that people are going to be surprised by it? In my opinion, they should be expecting it. And so my phone calls, my friend, are more of a breath of fresh air. We can get rid of the nonsense and the filtering of me sounding like a telemarketer, sound like a real straight up guy, like your best friend or neighbor. And then from there, when we've gotten through that filtering process, they start asking me questions, and then I start asking them open-ended questions so they can answer my questions and triple stack them. And so that's not manipulation, but it's really just more of a focused control when we're having these non-visual conversations with people, just to see that we find the right tell signs, or it's the right time to listen, or to add to the conversation.
It is definitely a developed skill, and it's always a breath of fresh air when you get a telemarketer that actually has a conversation versus just going straight into a pitch, right? I mean, I think that's and it's not just on the telephone, by the way. I get DMs all the time that are just straight pitch. I'm like, you don't even know who I am yet, and you're trying to sell me something. How's that even going to work? So let me ask you about
Can I share a secret with you there? It just takes 1 second of due diligence. Custom make the voicemail, custom make the email or the text or the drop. Use me for an example. Someone just has to Google me for a second. They'll see I have the largest collection of American pinball in Central America. My building is Art Deco with neon lights. I'm from Philadelphia. If you throw that into an email template, you're going to get 5 minutes of my time. It's yours to lose. So just don't carpet bomb. Take a second to look at a LinkedIn profile or a website. You might find a goodie or two in there, as you say, Hernan, to get your attention so it just doesn't look like spam.
Oh, you are 100% correct. We're literally putting out all our information in the public on a daily basis with every single point that we make, whether it's a post that we think is cute or valid or funny or informational, but all those things are ammo that we can use in a conversation, just like you're saying. So let me ask you about customer service, because obviously you're all about having top-notch customer service. I can tell by the conversation that we're having that that's definitely something that you emphasize with you and in your business. But my question has to do with the role of language. Like for you, you went to school, you're educated, your language is very proficient, but you're also in Costa Rica. And I think one of the things that people worry about when they're hiring VAs or telemarketing companies is that the people on the other end are not like the people that they're calling. And then that kind of may interfere. How do you handle that when it comes to dealing with customer service side to make sure it's top notch and that the language kind of plays a good role in it?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think a Marilyn Monroe beauty mark looks good? I do.
Perspective,
do you remember
right?
Ricardo Montalban on Fantasy Island? I mean, he was cool, but he was super cool with that accent. Listen, I gave anyone that is bilingual bears the mark of higher education. So as long as they have stellar vocabulary and grammar, that slight accent, as I mentioned before, that's a slide stance. I think that's wickedly cool. And in fact, some people compliment it. And so maybe you might need to raise your voice a little bit, slow down a bit, or choose other vocabulary. I've mentioned writing words out phonetically, but learning how to spell them properly, but adjusting the vowels or certain words accordingly so it is pronounced a certain way. But fear is a morbid anticipation. I try to put that in perspective. Learning a second language is 10 times harder than any campaign I'm going to put them on. And I think all people want, any sort of person, is the fact that you show attentive customer support. You take notes so they don't have to repeat themselves. And I tell you what, people hedge. They say, okay, wonderful, great. Well, sometimes the answer is not wonderful. Sometimes the answer is not great. If the guy's like, I've been married 50 years and I'm the happiest in the world, that's great. Married 50 years. Okay, that's a great. But if they're saying, I live on 123 Main Street, that's great. No, it's not. It's crack infested. And someone just got shot yesterday. And so if you're not sure, those are the times when you use that monotone robot. Hernan, did you say 123 Main Street? Is that correct? Yes, Richard. Thank you. Then you move on. Because I've seen people open up rabbit holes by being excited for the worst or missing the tell sign of being positive on something. So watch that hedging. Hedging's terrible, and stop calling people sir and ma'am. You should use their first or last names, and you should say it beautifully because it's non-visual. It's a great way, like a pastor with the flock. They're not walking in a straight line. There's a little bit of wiggle, but you got to bring people's attention spans back in. Hernan, you look at me again. But on the phone call, you're going to possibly snap back to it. And so you need that sort of control. And so maybe with our metrics, the talk time might be a little bit longer, but it's only because we're solidifying information and double checking and potentially listening to you because you want to vent for a minute. And then we take nice notes. So when we call back, we remind you what you've spoken about. So now we're 5 steps ahead. You know that today most people are looking at omni-channel non-voice support. You're mentioning your chats, your emails, but a lot of people get frustrated. I believe that when you speak with a client, you'll get that upsell, you'll retain them, you might get a referral out of them, and even the best case scenario, and this is the mature thinking in my head, you'll get an exit interview. You're going to find out where you dropped the football or what your competition had done in order to earn that business. Now, if you're capable of listening to that and incorporating that sort of advice from a long-term client that will call the balls and the strikes, then you're capable of adjusting your company culture and getting better. And so these are the sort of suggestions that I would make to your amazing audience that has a company, looking to grow a company, or is in an organization, may not be the owner, but has excellent suggestions to make the company culture better. But I'm not getting paid more. Doesn't matter. You're paying it forward. Because hopefully when you own a company one day, the people that are below you, your colonels and generals, are making those sort of $1 million suggestions for you. So when it's their time, they'll be prepared. Do you understand that sort of progression? And so I'm always the person that eats last and speaks last. I want to hear what everyone has to say first. And I've heard some brilliant ideas from the people that work with me here.
Yeah, and things are just constantly changing. I again, you're a breath of fresh air because you're sticking to some of the fundamental things that we as humans like to have, which is a conversation. We want to be heard. We want to hear our name. It's like our favorite word of all time is our name. And if you're using a lot of these tools, that's where a lot of your sales increase. I think we hide behind a lot of the newer technology, the newer platforms, trying to be omnipresent on the one hand, but on the other hand, not really having that communication that moves the needle per se. So let me ask you, on the technology side, what innovations or technologies are you using to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to these call centers? You kind of mentioned CRMs. What are you doing to stay ahead of the curve and provide these companies like the best possibility when it comes to achieving results, to tracking data, to doing those types of things?
It's quite simple. Workforce management, proper staffing, less wait time, first call resolution. As long as you're properly staffed, your agents have all of their resources, you're on a level playing field. There's no reason why you can't walk right up to that desk and get that first class plane ticket. The worst thing you want to see are lines that wrap around the block and you're going to miss the show. And I always believe a company needs to respect their customers. And they should always have, in my opinion, a +1 or +2 staff to ensure that someone's there to remove plates from a table, to serve that additional drink, or just to pacify people prior to the transfer. The worst thing is somebody sitting on hold. All they want to do is pop and change companies. And so my basic suggestion, and it's $1 million tip, and I'm not cracking a code, have enough staff just to make sure that people can continue with their momentum and rhythm and not hit a red light. That's the worst thing to do, is to make somebody wait when they're having a wonderful day.
Let me ask you from a high school graduation perspective. There are a lot of these kids that are sitting in my class right now that maybe don't have a clue what they're going to do next, that are going to go to find different jobs just to kind of pay bills and get by. You mentioned something right now that I thought was vitally important, which is always having that extra effort, putting in the extra amount, even though you're not getting paid for it, because of what you're doing and passing it forward. What advice would you give to some of these young high school seniors who are about to graduate, going into the workforce, so that they can become successful in whatever it is they do, no matter what the vertical is or what the industry is? What are some of those things that you see as you've hired people, as you've trained people, as you brought people on, promoted them? What are some of those qualities that they can emphasize on to be successful in their future endeavors or their careers?
Before I give them the secret sauce, I need to earn some high school street cred. I just went back to Philadelphia and was inducted into the Abington Senior High School Hall of Fame for Business. We have other famous alumni such as Steven Schwartzman, Ashton Carter. We have Amar Bose, Michael Buffer, Bob Saget, Heisman Trophy winner Eddie George, and another legendary NFL player, Sean Wooden. They were in my year. So I'm standing with the grades. So someone like myself.
Congratulations to you, by the way.
Listen, I was not an honor roll student. I did some student gov, but I was also considered the 1991 class partier. So I took advantage of a huge empty house most weekends for huge parties on the weekends. But these seniors, dear seniors, the fact that I'm friendly with Dr. Jeffrey Fetcher and Principal Angelo Barrios, my buddies, and we celebrated this moment together, I would have never experienced that or even thought about it. I'm the long shot that hit. But I also have my fidelity. I'm extremely proud of my high school. Without that sort of self-confidence and self-reliance and all of my friends to give me that sort of reinforcement and support, and growing up in a community that just loves one another and is very united, sure, I had the advantages. But then again, you know, you make your own future. Each one of us is on a vision quest. And I was under an enormous amount of pressure to go to Ivy League like my grandpa. He went to Harvard Law. My pop was at Columbia Business School. My brother went to Washington and Lee. And two of them graduated Germantown Academy, a very fine private school that, once again, I left in 7th grade. So there are certain areas where you shine, and there's certain places where I believe that you belong and you're more comfortable. You should believe in your intuition. You shouldn't listen to the naysayers and the gray believers. I believe if you live life with good intentions, you should drink life. And for me, my passion was Spanish. My good friends, it wasn't the 5 hours in class or the 1 hour of homework. I was watching movies, listening to music, reading books, finding as many intercambios as I could just to practice my passion. Little did I know it unlocked all these doors. And when I moved to Costa Rica, I started off 5 steps ahead. I showed good faith. I learned your language. I learned the subjunctive tense. I even learned the vosotros form is what they use in Spain. Andalusia, Castilian Spanish, such a passion. And by using that sort of passion and good faith, strangers then became friends. People invited me in their homes and gave me second plates of food and asked my ideas. And even telling the most simplest of stories was fascinating to them because it was in a second language and someone trying. That's a beautiful passion. And so do not be embarrassed. Do not be afraid to ask for assistance of those that know. and have your chest out and shoulders back and chin up. And I believe that you should be bold and brave, because the next thing you know, you're going to be 50 years old like me, that's bald with a white beard, telling tall tales. I expect you to be in your Hall of Fame at your high school, and I expect you to have twists and turns. But my goodness gracious, live your life. That would be my best advice to share with you today.
That is some of the best advice possible. Live your life. It's your life to live. You're 100% correct. Twists, turns, ups, downs, left, rights, they're all over. But you also are going towards that thing that you love to do. It's what fuels you every single day.
Oh,
All right, I want to go back to your business here real quick.
Yeah,
In business, there's always all kinds of metrics. For me in marketing, I'm always looking at click-through rates and conversion rates and all these different numbers that mean different things for the marketing space. When it comes to the call center, what do you measure as success? What metrics are you prioritizing to kind of measure that success rate?
depends on the stage of the project. If you're in a ramp up onboarding stage, you're looking at simple metrics, if they can just keep pace. And then you're focusing, when you have your quality control department, if they're hitting their KPIs, which are key performance indicators. Are they qualifying the call properly? Are they doing what they're being paid to do? But my friend, I'm always looking for the 10% wiggle. Where's the soft skills? When do we talk about the dog or Philadelphia or going fishing, or one of those things that come up when I look at your company's bio and see how freaking cool it is? I mean, Business Bros podcast, man, I could read about you guys for hours and listen to, all of the episodes. And so these are the sort of things that, just as I'm saying, just add momentum. I hate standstill starts. I think you can catch people at a certain wave and just connect with them certain ways. And so those are kind of my thoughts to that, my good friend.
I feel like you probably get this comment all the time, but time has flown by while I'm having a conversation with you. Literally 30 minutes is almost gone by, and I want to make sure I give you time to get your message, your contact information out. So if you can leave us with some final thoughts, but at the same time, plug your stuff. If people want to reach out, they're like, look, this guy understands communication. Richard knows what's up. He knows how to communicate. He knows how to train his staff. This is the kind of call center I want behind my business. How can they reach out and find out more information to work with you?
First, your amazing audience needs to put their checkbook away. I'm not selling anything. There's no 1995 seminar. I don't have a book. But if you want to get in touch with me, definitely buy a first-class plane ticket. Come down here and visit me. But I do have an extremely large Facebook fan page, and I got 114,000 local Costa Ricans, and it will give your audience a real grasp of the business process outsourcing industry in Central America. Now, real quick, we're north of Panama, south of Nicaragua. We're the only democratic society in Central America. It's amazing. They don't have a standing army, so they put all of that money back into education. Costa Rica's got a 95% literacy rate. We have the most neutral of English accents, best infrastructure in Central America, and companies such as Amazon, HP, Intel, and Oracle are here. We got 500,000 expats. We're known for medical tourism, plus ecotourism. We got some of the best surfing in the world, and your buddy Richard's here. And I got 1,001 suggestions for you and your audience. And Hernan, I can't thank you enough. Yes, the time did fly by. You are the man. I enjoy your show. And guess what, pal? You bring the best out of people. So pura vida, my good friend.
Appreciate you even saying that. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's all about. These conversations, again, over and over again. 11:56 is this episode. Why? Because I love having a conversation with entrepreneurs, figuring out what they did right, what they did wrong, what advice they would give. And literally, Richard is here sharing his expertise, and you don't even have to buy it. It's literally just in listening to the way he speaks to people, how he spoke on this particular podcast, the way he thinks. That's the type of people you want to surround yourself with, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are pushing the needle forward in the most, I want to say, real human way. Right. And so, Richard, thank you very much for coming on the show. You won't say it, but I will. Costa Rica's call center Costa Rica's callcenter.com is where you can find more information about Richard. His social on LinkedIn is at RichardBlank44, and reach out, send him an email, CEO at Costa Rica's callcenter.com. Richard, thank you very much for coming on the program. Any last minute thoughts before we head out?
Yeah, especially to your high school seniors, don't be so hard on yourself. You know, you're cool cats, so hang in there. Do what you got to do.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, ladies and gents. Richard, thank you very much for coming on the program. Ladies and gents, one more time, Costa Rica's call center. If you need help getting your message out, making those phone calls, I know it's not the easiest thing in the world. You might as well have a team that's really good at it. Do it for you. Costa Rica's call center. Thank you very much. Have a great one. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to